I'm very selective with food, so I knew I was never going to eat amala, come rain, come shine. So I didn't even know why. I was like, this person, why? Who is he? So that voice made me to start probing to know who this person really was. My name is Excellent Lanerica Joshua. Yeah.
Okay. So how was life before you met your ex-husband?
Um. Okay. So I think I will say I was a regular girl, or I should say I was a regular girl, but I wasn't particularly very regular. I had gone to a unity school. Um, I was considered quite smart, or everybody, or most people felt I was smart, I was intelligent. The only thing, I didn't know what I wanted to become, but one thing I knew I didn't want to be was a doctor. Yeah, a medical doctor per se. I didn't want to be a medical doctor, so I went through school, and when I was in science class, we are filling jam forms. I knew I didn't want to be a doctor, but I remember one day going through from talk shop to my class when I was in, I think, SS2 and SS2 third term, or so SS3 first term, and there were some of our teachers in talk shop. Then one of them was Mr. Gimba, and I greeted them from far. And he called me. He said, "Come, come, Excellence, come." And I went to meet him, and he's like, "Excellence, how are you?" I said, "Fine." He said, what are you going to be applying for? What do you want to study?" I said, "I don't know, but I just like challenges. I want to do something different, but I don't think I want to be a doctor, and I don't think I want to be an engineer as well. I think engineering is a little bit all over the place, and then doctors too, and I don't know, but I just want to do something different." And he was like, "The world is tending towards biotechnology. Have you heard of that before?" And I said no. And he said, "You should check it out. You should read up about it. Biotechnology is the emerging field, and I think it's something that will stretch you, and you love to be stretched. So I think it's something you want to do." And it stuck. Yeah, it stuck in my head. I said, "Biotechnology, I want to do biotechnology." And he was saying, "Do you know they create humans now, they mutate animals, there's also something called forensics." I was so fascinated about those things because I'm not actually heard of those things prior to then. And so it was anything that is new and fascinating was like, okay, this is nice. But when we were to apply for JAM, they brought in the by the way, JAM is the admission assessing institution for those that want to go to the higher institution in Nigeria. So I got the JAM booklet to check the institutions there and the courses there that are accredited. Unfortunately, there was not really forensic science, and I think the only university then that had biotechnology was Salem University or something. And I knew I wasn't really going to go to a private university. One, because of funds. Two, we considered it not too fantastic at that time, so I wanted to go to a federal university. And so after all by and by, at that time my mom had told me how she had seen me become a pharmacist, and so she felt okay, I was going to be a pharmacist and I was going to do well as a pharmacist, and that was what God was saying. And if you know me, if I hear God is saying this, I'm all in there. So I'm like, okay, no problem. But pharmacists, what is pharmacists? Don't they just sell stuff in cures and just sell drugs and all of that? And she's like, no, that she doesn't know, but this is what God is telling her. So she linked me up with one of my uncle's family friend, Dr. Timothy. And she told me to go see him. I went to see him. Like, "Oh, pharmacist is different." And he too expounded my mind about dentistry and some other things. And he took me to a dent pharmacist at the University of Objection Hospital staff quarters. And I remember her. She's fair. I can't remember her name. And she sat down, she began to talk to me, and she told me the so many opportunities that abound in being a pharmacist, how you can't really bring in drugs and stuff so that the pharmacist license, you can't register the pharmacist, you can't register most food and drug stuff so that the pharmacist license, pharmacist this, pharmacist that. And I'm like, oh wow, so there's multiple streams of income in becoming a pharmacist. I found it fascinating. I'm like, okay, yes, I'm applying for it. So that year I applied for pharmacy, and I put in for UNN, University of Nigeria, Nsukka, and I also put in for University of Jos at that time. Was it Jos? Yeah, I think I put in for Jos. Yeah, University of Nigeria Sukan Jos. And so I wrote the exams, and the first time, I think the first jam, I think I had 198 or something. I can't remember. It was quite shocking. But shortly after, jam said they were going to do a remark, that there was an error, and so they did a remark, and I think I had, was it 220 or 214 or something thereabout. Anyway, it was my first jam, and so I qualified for the UNN post 2MA. But at that time, I was very sickly. I was always falling sick. I was always falling sick, one thing or the other. My body was a little bit frail. Any extra work, any stress like this, I just break down. And so I remember when the exam was coming up, the post 2MA, I had to travel to Enugu, and I was ill. And my mom was like, God said no, he doesn't want me in UNN, that God is saying he wants me in Ibadan, that I was going to go to University of Ibadan, that she had revelations to that effect. And at that time, my dad was so skeptical. This one, you're falling sick, you want to go far, are you sure you want to go far? He really did not want me to go far. And he was telling me, you're smart now, go for medicine. As at that time, medicine was relatively new at the University of Abuja. And he's like, why don't you go for medicine? Everybody, medicine. If you're going for medicine, I have people here at the University of Abuja, and they could just help you out. You'll get in, and you're going to qualify, you're pursuing me. Just change the University of Abuja. And I'm like, I don't want to study medicine. Number two, University of Abuja, I don't think they're serious here. Okay, that was my perception, because I kind of grew up around the community, so most times maybe familiarity or something. So I felt no, I didn't want to go to University of Abuja. That was one thing that I was quite sure about. But beyond being sure about not going to University of Abuja, I didn't want to study medicine. So my dad tried, and I said, no, I'm not going to do medicine. I'm not going to do medicine. I'm going to do pharmacy. And so that meant I was going to stay at home one more year, because there was no opportunity to change courses anymore at that institutions at that time. And so I sat back, and that was when I got my first job in my dad's business center as a cashier. I was doing cashier for them, and he had a business center, so I also helped them do some typing. I could type, and I could do all of those things on computer and all of those, but I was more into collecting money. So everybody would do their jobs, and they would come and pay me. So I was a cashier. Then towards the next year, I enrolled in a lesson tutorial per se, that's what people call it. Yeah, in a lesson to prepare for the new JAM. And I applied for JAM, and I put in University of Ibadan again. I put University of Ibadan this time around, and University of Jos. Now, at this time, it sounded stupid. If everybody, I thought, how will you put University of Ibadan? Ibadan, hey, Ibadan, it's not even easy to go, Everybody felt, even people that are Yoruba self, that's their catchment area, they don't easily get admission there. Ibadan this, Ibadan that. But however, there's just one thing I heard about University of Ibadan that was nice to me. They were like, that sounded nice, or the most nice to me. It was the fact that if you pass, you pass. That Ibadan is 99% on merit. So if you do well, you do well. They're just going to take you. And at that point in Nigeria, it was so pronounced that before you get into any university, you have to know somebody. And for me, one of my values, it's kind of integrity, honesty. I didn't want to, I felt if I deserve it, give it to me. If I don't deserve it, just tell me. Like, it's just, for me, it's just black or white. There's no in between. I really wanted to have that experience where I qualified and I got something. I didn't, especially university, I didn't want my parents to have to pay for me to get an admission. So when I heard University of Ibadan was one of the schools, or if not the only school in the country at that time, where your chances of getting in on merit was extremely high, I'm like, okay, I'm doing this. I remember my neighbor telling me, people that put Ibadan, they stay at home 3-4 years, and eventually they go and apply for another school. So I'm like, okay, no problem. I applied then they had to do there's something called, I think, aggregate. I can't remember what it's called now, but there's how your WAEC is added to your UTME score. At that time, when the first set, I think that I wrote the new UTME or something. And at that time, University of Ibadan they don't do post 2ME, they do interactive session. Yeah, interactive session. So we're to do interactive sessions at that time. And so I wasn't called for the first set and then the second set. And I'm like, eh. I went there. I remember going there. I told my parents, I said, I want to go there. I want to find out what is wrong. I want to, I was very, very disturbed. And I remember going there, and this, my same family friend, Dr. Timothy, had introduced me to a church member who was living in Ibadan. He had also schooled in University of Ibadan. He studied dentistry, but he's now daddy now, and all of those things. So he had some contacts there, and he introduced me to one of them who had, of course, they had a student fellowship, and he introduced me to Emmanuel. So I went to Emmanuel. Emmanuel introduced me to another lady in the school fellowship who I could stay in her place or something, and he took me around, and I went to the pharmacy and I was asking to find out what's actually going on. I think they said the cutoff was this 78 or something, and I had 70 or something, no 72, and I had 68. I can't remember, something like that. And so I remember the admin was telling him, and he's like, oh no, this is how it works. So Ibadan does not have any particular catchment area. The whole of Nigeria is a catchment area. So yes, when they first set they know the number they can take per year. They can't take more than a certain number, and so based on that number they set the cutoff mark. I think the mark was 88, and I can't remember. And it was 88 that was admitted. That was on the cutoff mark. Yeah. So he said they set a particular number, and so they use that number to cut on the cutoff mark. So they take that number. However, it's very important that every state of the federation is also represented in the admission, in those admitted that year. So at the end of the day, they still go back and then they begin to pick maybe the next person in the state. That's why you might see somebody that had just 30 and you feel you're better than that person, but because the person is from Adamawa and is the only person that applied, they will take the person in, right? That's what he explained to me. So I'm like, oh wow. So he said, just hope that when they begin to assess those things, that you're the next on the list for your states, and your states are, you guys are very intelligent, so the competition might be high. I'm from Abia State. So I'm like, oh, okay. I began to pray and all of that and reach out. Eventually I was called in for the third set supplementary list, yeah, for the interactive session. They asked us questions and all, and I remember that night I was on my bed, and I just got a message. I just got a call, go check the site. I think your name is there. I'm like, eh, my name, hey. I ran there. I quickly picked my phone. I jumped from my bed, and I saw that I had been admitted. I also got an SMS and a mail that I had been admitted. I practically flung myself off the bed. Oh my God, I was jumping, I was crying. Now, there's a back-end story to this. At this point, before I'd gone to the interactive session, JOS had announced that they were not admitting that year because there was crisis in JOS, and so they had accumulated sessions together. So they said they were not admitting. And so they said those that applied for JOS had to change their course of institution. My dad was like, go and change to Madonna University, private university or something. Because this Ibadan thing, me, I'm not sure. I've said you have a backup, but guess what? When I went to change, I changed to Ibadan again as second choice. So that was when I came out, I was like, why would you do that? I said, that is Ibadan, not that's where God wants me to be. So that's where I'm going to be. So Ibadan was my only backup. So if I didn't get Ibadan, I was going to spend another year at home. So it was just it for me. So I was so excited about it. And I packed my bags for the first time. First person from my family that was really, okay, my dad had traveled a bit to Lagos and all, but I was going to the Southwest to study. And I remember resuming in December 2010 to the University of Ibadan. I got in, and it was a little bit weird. I remember going to an office, and the woman was like, and I greeted her, and she was like, eh, and then she spoke to me Yoruba. I think probably what she was asking me was, what do I want? And I was like, ma'am, I'm sorry, I don't understand Yoruba. And she's like, eh, you don't understand Yoruba? So what are you doing here? And all of that. And she was so hostile to me. And she's like, you people will leave all your universities in the East, and you will come here and start taking all our spaces, and our people will not even have space. And me, I was like, I'm not even from the East. I'm from the East, but I don't even live in the East. So I started crying. How old was I then? How old? I think 18 or something. I started crying. Okay, God. I said, God, oh, all these people, they are not even nice. Everywhere you go, Yoruba. And then when we start doing registration, you start doing recording, all of those medicals. And I met my wonderful friends, Zena Bodufoye, Remy, and three of us would just go. They gave us temporary accommodation then in Queen's Hall. It was just not funny. And I was cringing. And then we started trying to lobby for accommodation. So eventually I was assigned to Queen Elizabeth II Hall. I was trying to start lobbying for accommodation. And then when they gave me 100 level students room was 6 in a room, guess what? All my roommates were Yoruba. I didn't say non-Igbo, like Yoruba. And some of them looking at me with one kind of eye like that. And so when they came, all of them were speaking batting. Me, I didn't want to say anything, they were speaking. So me, I just went and I laid my bed and I just stayed. Now one of my roommates were 2 identical twins, beautiful twins. But all of them, and so they were going to stay together. Hey, everybody, bara. Me, I didn't know what next. I didn't know. Everything was just weird to me. You go to the cafeteria, I could not eat rice and stew because I said the stew was super peppery. Everybody was talking amala. I didn't even know any amala, anything. I didn't have friends. I didn't know anybody. We also had quite a number of people who their friends, they are from the same secondary school. So all of them get what I'm just everybody was forming clique. Me, I didn't have clique. I was the only one from my school at that time, and even from Abuja too. So I felt down. I'll just call my dad. I will call my dad and say, "Don't worry, you'll be fine. Stay there," And so we now resumed lectures in the popular CBN lecture theatre. And we had many courses stuck together. So I realized they said, you have to go there early, if not, there won't be no seats. So like 5, 6 a.m., people are in front of the door. Once they open the door like this, everybody going in, Some people, I didn't realize that some people even bought, these chairs photographers to have in their studio to take pictures. Some people used to carry it on their head, carry their chair. So when they go inside the lecture theatre, they'll go and put it in the front to go and sit down. So we were all struggling to go in. So I remember going there and I'll try to sit in front. Push, you hold your bag like this. So I do not carry your bag and your book and you enter. So I got in there. And when I got in there, I remember one day, maybe that first or second week, when we had resumed lectures in January, I began to hear some ladies speaking Igbo and they were insulting one guy like that. I mean, the guy took their space or something. And this one was sweating me. They're speaking Igbo, yeah, This was sitting my body. So the guy is Yoruba. The guy didn't understand what they were saying. And so they just speaking Igbo. Like up to 5 or 6 girls. So I was like, hey, so this can happen. Me, I can't speak Igbo, but I understand it very well. So this one was suiting me very well. I say, hey, God, this boy. I was laughing and I was just doing as if I was reading my book. I was laughing. I would bend my head on the table and I will laugh. So I kind of loved the girls. They were speaking the Igbo so fluently. They were so good that me, I was like, I can't speak Igbo like this, though. And I just knew I wanted to be friends with these girls. So I was just watching them, and then small time, and I said, please, can I see your notes and all of that. To cut the long story short, one of them or two of them happened to be, I was in, I think G13, they were in G11, so they were part of those room, and then we kind of, and I said, please, can we go together? Somehow we just became friends, and through those ones I was able to meet the other ones, and they also had when their state association. I was so happy. It was like family to me. So we read together, and one of them, Dara, who happens to be my friend, one of my best friends till date. We just did all those, we're just happy about the whole experience until then we did 100 level was there. Then you have to pass. There's a minimum requirement to pass to go to B Farm 1. Pharmacy school does not start from 100 level, it starts from 200 level. 200 level is called B Farm 1. So everybody was like, you're not yet pharmacy schools when you get to B Farm 1. Yeah, that was the whole thing we're hearing. So I was so excited about getting to B Farm 1, and by the grace of God I passed and I got to B Farm 1. When I got to B Farm 1, Nadia, we can't see the pharmacy real. It just wasn't funny. We did our first test, our first CA. So you have the first CA, I think even the second, and then the exam. So it's structured. It's very structured in pharmacy school. It's not like university that teacher will just come and just give you test and it's well structured. It's very structured, and considering the class was small, I think when we got in, we're like, I think 88, I think about 60 something got into B Farm 1, so I can't remember out thereabout. So it was well structured, and so we did our first CA. Hey, I was seeing some scores that I could not believe that Amy, but you know now, if you know Ibadan, you're working with so many ways, so many gurus, and most of these schools in the southwest, they train very well, so their students are very exceptional. We got in there and I saw the scores and I'm like, what is going on? But I understood this concept, but I read this thing, but I wrote this thing. So what happened? I realized that when the teachers were doing the correction, I realized that what they expected was maybe some certain keywords. They have to give it back as they gave it to them. Immediately I saw that, I just knew it's a no, no. I don't do la cram, la pour. I can't cram. See, if you tell me a story today, if you're asking me that thing tomorrow, I will not give you the way you gave me. It just doesn't work for me. I can't cram and pour like those kind of. No, I can't. I will tell you what you've told me. I'll just give you the essence, like tell you this is what you're saying, but but to not give you exactly just wasn't my thing. It just wasn't me, And so I began to struggle. And at that time, too, my parents were going through some financial crisis. And so they will tell us today we're buying codex. Codex is like how much? Maybe 6K. The other one, they were buying this one, 10K. Oh, we're buying that one. And I think at that point, by 2011, I was staying off campus. 2011 accommodation is not guaranteed in UI. 100 level and final year guaranteed to a large extent, but in between it's not really guaranteed. So it was just tough for me. I could not feed my room. I just had my mattress. I had nothing. It was frustrating. Transportation to school, and then they will say buy codex, and they will say we have to buy shoes. So everything, and then feeling not at home. I was struggling a lot. I was highly distracted. And so I remember in that 200 level, when we did the second CA, to the results I felt, when we were to write exam, I wanted to just drop out. I just felt, no, this is not for me. This pharmacy, I thought it was for me, but no, it's not for me. This is not what I want to do. This is not stretching my brain. I can't be cramming and pouring. I can't, then everything. I was just frustrated. So I remember going to my then dean, Professor Moody, and I told him that, I explained to him what was going on with me, and I said I wanted to drop. And he's like, drop? No, don't drop out. Now at this time, I was quite noticed in my class because I was being nominated for quite some scholarships, and we're not so many scholarships are available to pharmacy students. So when you now have few and then somebody's name keeps reoccurring, you just know. So I was kind of a little bit known in that area because I was applying for many scholarships. So he told me, no, I think you're smart. I don't think you're not doing well. What I think you should do is, have you read your prospectus? You can actually defer. Why don't you pause? You've paid your school fees, right? Just defer. Take some time to reassess, think again, and be sure. Then you can actually change course if you want to change course instead of just dropping out. He encouraged me, talked to me and all, and he told me to write a letter and we approved it. I went back home, wrote the letter, took it back to him and submitted, and immediately approved. In 2-3 days, I packed my things and I came back to Abuja. Even my friends, when they went to exam, they were calling my matric number. They did not see me. They're looking for me. They did not see me. Nobody understood what had happened. It was just a shock. I didn't even tell my then course supervisor, my course advisor, yes, because pharmacy was well structured. So when they say you have course advisor, they assign us like it's quite nice studying UI. The structure, I love structure. So I felt that was really nice, but I didn't tell her. I'm sorry, I didn't tell her. So I just went home. I came home and I just said, I'm not doing that thing again. I want to do forensic science or biotechnology, and I want a scholarship. If I'm not going to school through scholarship, I'm not doing again. No, I said it pump and plain. I can't be going to school and I'm struggling. How will I eat? How will I buy this book? I was like, how do you not expect me to do well? I said, I need a full scholarship. If I'm not getting a scholarship, I'm not going. And so I began to try. I'd heard about the federal government scholarships. I've heard about some opportunities. So I felt, okay, let me try. When people are traveling abroad through scholarship through now, let me try. Or let me write SAT, or something. I just felt I wanted to do something different. I really wanted to get a scholarship. Things were really bad. Yeah, they were really, really bad. And so at that point, I tried. I got one, but the funds were not released, so I couldn't travel. So we got to the new session again, and it was either I resume or I forfeit the admission. So you can't defer for too long. So I remember my dad calling me and like, since you're very smart, you don't want to be a dropout. It's like this, it used to start, oh, small, 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 small. You're just, why, instead of going through, why don't you just go and try? Just go and try and finish it. Just try. I'm like, Daddy, you want me to go back there and spend an extra 4 years of my life? Like, Daddy, 4 years. And when I come out, I don't even see myself using that thing. I don't see where I was into. I can't be cramming. It's just suffering. It's just, I was just telling him. And he's like, just go and try. So I resumed with the hope that maybe when I'm there, they'll just call me one day and say, federal government have released funds and we're going to Tunisia for me to study mathematics. I've always been a very good math student, very, very good math student. But I never got a call, and I was there, I was trying. I met new friends. Of course, I had to start from tutorial level again, so there was a new set. I met very amazing people, especially wanting to mention Alan, a very good friend. And we started. And I just felt at that point I started learning about purpose. I started learning about a lot of things. I started understanding why I was not happy with my life, why things were not really working, and all of this kind of stuff. And so I started trying, but it wasn't clicking. So I just told God, I said, God, give me a sign, give me a sign, give me a sign and a reason to leave this course. I don't know what else to do anymore. I can't defer again, or is this how I'm just gonna live my life? I really don't see anything in this. And so I went through it. But at the end, in pharmacy, you recite, you repeat, you recite or you repeat, or you're chalked out. There is no carryover. You can't carry over, because the 2 level courses are prerequisites to the 3 level courses, and just like that, a 5 level. So you have to have passed it. So you don't just carry over. And so I remember we finished, we go home and then wait for the results. And I remember getting called to say that I was to repeat. I was expecting maybe a receipt. A receipt was going to be my sign to say that I'm not doing this again. But they were saying, and then if you the pass mark was 50. So if you have less than 50 in 4 courses, you will repeat. If you have less than 50 in less than 4 courses, you will receipt those courses. Then if you still have less than 50, you might repeat. But if you have less than 50 in more than 4 courses, you will be withdrawn, right? So I had, I think, 4 courses, and I was asked to repeat. And anyway, long story short, later when I checked my result, I realized that I had less than 14, just 3 courses. So I was only supposed to receipt, not even repeat. But I think there was an error in calculation, whatever. But it didn't matter anymore. I just felt that was my sign. I remember them calling to confirm, and he just told me, and I'm like, I didn't even feel sad. My mom and dad were in my mom's shop. I just went and I said, Mom, Daddy, they say I'm repeating, and I'm not repeating. I'm actually not going back to pharmacy. And they're like, I said, no, I'm not going back. That's my sign. I've been paying for a sign. I can't cram. I can't get that thing. I can't cram. No, I'm not doing that. My parents are very supportive, and they said, okay, so what do you want to do? I said, I want to change course. I don't know, but let me go and think about it. So I thought about changing to psychology. I resumed not too long after that. I'd gotten some scholarship money, and I applied. I went to psychology department to see if I can apply. I felt it would be easy for them to take me because I wasn't withdrawn. I was voluntarily leaving. Meanwhile, quite a number of people are withdrawn and they actually go there. So I went there, and they said that for our sets, they had quite a number already, and they had a quota they can take. So they weren't going to take new students. I was broken, but the HOD said he will see what we can do. If something comes up, they'll let me know. And so while I was waiting, lectures were almost starting up, and my parents were disturbed, my friends were disturbed. Why don't you just try and do this thing? Just pay the pharmacy school fees. Just try. And like, I don't want to do this thing. And I remember one day, Dara stopped by. I had moved into a new place, and she stopped by to see me. And she's like, my brother studied medical lab science. I said yes. I said, now it's now upgraded to biomedical lab science, and have you taken a look at the curriculum? The curriculum is very rich. You've always been talking about how you wanted to be a forensic scientist and about technologies. I think the curriculum covers for it. That I will send you a copy to look at when I get back to my hostel, and I think you can look at it, and if it's something you want, it's a new course, they don't have so many students, this is even the first set. You can go to College of Medicine and make more inquiries. They might be wanting to take you since you're not withdrawn, because if you're withdrawn, you can't go to another professional course, you have to go to a lesser course. Do you understand? So that's just the way it works. So she's like, but you're not withdrawn. So it's a professional course, but I think you stand a chance. Why don't you just go and check? And I said, okay. And I went and I checked curriculum, and this was it. It was real. I felt, oh, these are topics I can relate with. This is real. So I'm like, oh, this is what I'm looking for. And I went to the HOD, the dean, the dean. That no, it wasn't the dean. It was the HOD, Professor Dimo. And I remember when I went to him, I explained everything. Oh, this is nice. This is kind of what we're looking for. Most of the people that came into this course when we just started, there were people that didn't really get the cutoff for medicine, and we just felt to put them here. And most of them don't even really know about the course. But you even know so much. You know, he was so fascinated. Like, but you know, in UI, there's a silent rule that you don't do interprofessional course transfer. I'm like, hey, yeah, okay. And like, but I'm going to see what I'm going to do for you. So I went through also Mrs. Adeleye, I think that was her name. She was working with UCH then, director then medical lab services. So she was quite influential in starting that course. So somebody said, go meet her, talk to her and see. So I spoke to her, and I was just praying. I was praying extensively, waiting. And I remember the day I got called that my change of course form has been signed, and so I was welcomed to medical lab science. For me, I felt that was the beginning of my living in university. That I'm now when I was in pharmacy, I was very, very timid, very reserved. I used to sit at the back of the class. I wasn't involved in anything. I was just, even the dinners I would not go. It just wasn't me, you know. So I was so excited about where I was going to. I felt I was now ready to stretch. And so that was basically life for me before I met my now ex-husband.
How did you meet your ex-husband?
Okay, so during this period where we're here, I was waiting for them to change my course. I was disturbed because depending on where I was going to be, it was going to depend on what I was going to read, what I was going to study for. Lectures had gradually started picking up, and I went to BFAM 1 class to read. And I remember when I got in there, because I felt, okay, if last I have to come to the pharmacy, let me even start reading. So I got in there and I entered. Not so many people were in the class, and I was reading, but then there were just flyers all over the place. Bowels Life Slim, everywhere, Bowels Life Slim. I'm like, what's Bowels Life Slim? So I picked it up, and I looked at it, and I saw, okay, it's a new drug from the US. It's really good, especially for those that are suffering from hypertension, those that wanted to lose weight, and so many of this funny ailments. Yeah, whatever it is. Yeah. So at that time, my dad was also going through some high BP issues, high blood pressure, and it was really high. And so we always were very disturbed. So when I saw it, it caught my attention, and to see the kind of institutions that actually approved or kind of verified the drug, that said, okay, this drug was working, I'm like, this was really good though. So I took the leaflet and I went home. When I went home, I sent the number. There was a number, and there was BBM. BlackBerry was well known then. This was 2014. So I took the BBM pin and I chatted up the contact, and I said, how much is this drug? And they said, I think 26,000 at that time. 26,000. I thought, okay, thank you. And the person behind the line, of course, the DP was the Bowels Life Slim logo, whatever. The person behind the line now said, but you don't, are you the one on your DP? I said, yes. But you don't need this. And I'm like, it's not for me. I'm not trying to lose weight. It's actually for my dad. He has hypertensive, but this amount is quite a lot. I'm transitioning, so I'm trying to sort out some things. But I'll look into it. I like the product, so I'll just keep it somewhere, and it's something I'll look forward to getting. And but so, okay, that's nice, well done. And that was it. Now I forgot, or it didn't occur to me to delete the BBM pin from my BlackBerry. And so this person began to stalk me per se, And I remember if I post occasionally if I post a status or story, we just interact and say, oh, this is nice, and all of that. And we kind of expound on it. I was a very church girl, very, very churchy at the time. Very excited about the word and all of those things. And so we'll just talk about it and I'll just move on. Now, at this point, I was very focused on me trying to transition, on me, my course changing, and a lot of things. So some things were not important to me. Things like relationships. No, no, no. I've just even gotten out of one not too long. So a lot of things were not at the top of my priority at that time. And so we occasionally would send out, say, okay, no problem, fine. And he began to maybe occasionally take interest, trying to engage me to talk. And I'll talk. Funny enough, as all this thing was going on, I never asked the name of the person because I wasn't interested, you know. And I remember when we began to now talk a little bit more, I remember one time I went to church and I came back and I saw many missed calls. And Connie was like, I was in church. I was like, don't make me miss you like that. Miss me? How? It didn't make any sense to me. I don't really know you. At this point, we had not even talked on the phone. It was just chat. So I didn't even know how his voice sounded or who he was. But he was beginning to frequently engage with me. And I remember one day I was just on my bed. I was housing Miracle then, a friend's sister. Of course, with the UI accommodation, it doesn't come that easy. So you might have to wait a bit when you resume before you get accommodation. So she was there. My younger sister too, Grace, was staying with me. I was staying off campus. And so I just heard a voice. It was very loud. It was audible. And he said, "It's your husband." That was what I heard. "It's your husband." I didn't even know who he was or what is it. Like, "Did you hear that?" And I said, "What?" I said, "You didn't hear?" She said, "No." I'm like, okay. I stood up from the bed and it went to my table and chair where I study. And the next call that came was his. Yeah, it was his. And I picked it up and he was like, "I wanted to hear your voice. I want to talk to you, blah, 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 blah. I missed you." And I'm like, so after the call, I'm like, could he be him? Who is he? And I went back to our conversations and began to look. And when I was looking, I found out that number one, he's Yoruba. And the way this guy talks, if he's not yet a pastor, he's someday going to be a pastor. Two things that were, I don't want to marry. I don't want to marry Yoruba man. I don't want to marry a pastor. That was it for me. So I said, how will now God be saying this? I'm very selective with food. So I knew I was never going to eat amala. Come rain, come shine. So I didn't even know why. I was like, this person, why? Who is he? So that voice made me to start probing to know who this person really was. I began to find out who he was. Who is this person? As he mistakenly dropped his name somewhere. Where could he be? I was just trying to find out. And at that time, I had a prayer partner. His name was Alan. Yeah, my friend I mentioned him from pharmacy school. We used to pray together. We'll go to the chapel ground early in the morning and we'll pray, and then I'll come back. Chapel of Resurrection, actually. So the next day we went to pray and I just said, "Alan, this is what is happening. What could be it? Could it be God telling me this?" No, we didn't meet that morning to pray. I think we met somewhere. We were going to school or something. There was just something. We met somewhere at the staff club or something. I now told him and he said, "Okay, when we come to pray," I think we're praying that day in the evening or something. And we didn't pray. We didn't pray. We sat down, we talked about it. He said, makes sense, this could be God though. That if this person is actually this sound in the word and like this, do you think that God would have been preparing you like that for just ordinary person? You don't want to marry a pastor. You're not serious though. And I really felt, I don't think so. That I really want to know, because the Bible says that bring forth your strong reason, present your case. So that I'll know if I should present my case before God and say, I don't want this person, let me say it early. Or if I should start paying attention. Of course, nothing in my mind, there was no area where I was going to tell him so God had told me. I don't believe in that. I believe if God has told you something about somebody, allow God to reveal to the person as well, and then you can now confirm. So I just don't believe in those things that you come and tell me. No, I don't particularly believe in those things. So I did not tell him, but I was disturbed so that you know if this is something to accept or to discard. And Alan encouraged me not to. That I shouldn't discard. This is likely God. I might not see the end of it yet, but at the end it will make sense. So I remember contacting another of my friend Jerry, and I told Jerry, see what I'm hearing. Jerry is my very good friend, and Jerry has been one person that has been advocating and praying that I never get it wrong in marriage. Yeah, he's my very good friend. And so I told him, and I reached out to him and told him, I was like, hey, thank God, I always knew you were going to marry a pastor, So these two people were solely people that relatively calmed me down. When I told my mom about it, my mom was like, no, that's a manipulation. That she sensed it, that voice I heard is not God, it's a manipulation, that she sensed it. And immediately I shut her down. I said, Mommy, no, and I didn't talk to her about it anymore. I spoke to another of my family friend, my neighbor, who was like a mommy to me then in Ibadan as well. And she's like, that she's not comfortable with this thing I said I heard though. But I said, no, Mommy, this is likely God. This is God. How would somebody else be talking to me? I heard the voice. It was very loud. It was clear. I was even surprised that those in the room did not hear it. And so, as natural as it was, I began to warm up to him. And this was, let's say, June 19 or something, or June thereabout. June, yeah. By July, he said he was coming to Ibadan. His friend, by then I'd known a bit about him, that I think I knew his name, and I was, from his name, Trust FBI Excellence, I was checking a lot about him to see, and I knew he was into ministry. And so he said his friend was having an induction, so he was coming around to see me. So I'm like, okay, no problem. To see his friend, then he will stop by. So I remember I was in class then. Of course, we were still doing preclinicals. I'd just been signed into my new course, Medical Lab Science, and we're in anatomy class. We just finished, and then he just called me that, where am I? I said, in Beef and Money. He said he's coming there. He's in UI. So he came. He was wearing a native, very slim, relatively tall. He was holding a nylon and maybe a diary or something. Very simple. And then he came and he called me and said, where are you? He said he's outside. I'd seen some of his pictures. In his pictures, he looked a little bit bigger, but here it was very, very slim, very just there. He wasn't my spec physically. Yeah, he wasn't my spec physically. But I was a very logical person. I'd been beaten in relationships, and so physical spec was not my thing anymore. I wasn't really interested in how you look. What was important to me was the mind, and can we work something out together? And so when I said, I'm like, oh wow, and I hugged him, and welcome, and I took him to my place. I was moving back to the hostel. So when I changed course, I wanted to move back to school, and I got an accommodation. So I had to go back and start from trial level again. So I wanted to move back to school. So I took him there. I'd taken the guy that was going to pick me up, the cab guy. So he packed stuffs, and he was with me, through that process. And he was like, oh, and all of that, and like, oh, so this is you I've been waiting for. Now I have my confirmation. A lot of things he was saying, gibberish, didn't make any sense, but he claimed he had been praying for me all the while. God had revealed me to him, and all of those kind of now I know gibberish stories. And that was how I actually met my now ex-husband. And from there we began to talk, and then he also tried to visit me in school. That was 2019. I met him first in July.
Tell us about the marriage.
Okay, so that was July. August, I remember he calling me and telling me, I think first week of August, that, okay, he just got a confirmation from God that I'm the one, I'm the wife, and all of that. I'm like, okay. Now at this time, I'd not also told him that I'd heard something about him, but I was just trying to mop it up. But most times when it comes to IB, we talk, and he will show me most of his journals. He writes a lot. I'm a writer. I love to write. I love to read. So we kind of synced. It seemed like, okay, this is a match made in heaven. Mistake of the century. So by September, he began to talk marriage. He said he called me one day, and he said that he and his guys. They went somewhere to pray, and when they were praying, the Lord told him he should go and do his marriage. Should go and do it. Is it marriage or wedding? Go and do your marriage, something. And he called me. I was like, marriage. This is just the beginning. I'm not very level. I'm just starting this course again, and it's not even easy. He's like, he didn't even want to marry his students. Yeah. Now he's 12 years older than I am. So he was like, he didn't want to marry his student. Those students get that. No, he doesn't want to marry his student. So, but he doesn't know why. But this is what God is saying. What do I think? And I'm like, he's very skilled at manipulation. Very, very skilled. Me, I was like, marriage. I don't think I want to marry yet though. Marriage is not even, was not even on my table. Like, I was like, even if God has told me something, it might take a while for it to manifest. But it doesn't. This is June or July, August, September. So it didn't connect for me like that. But then when he was telling me about it, think about it, and when I thought about it, I felt, okay, maybe there's a blessing God wants to release. And there are some blessings that are not released until you get married. So I felt, okay, maybe this was one of them. So we talked about it, and long to short story, we agreed that, okay, we could actually do a wedding, get married, but we don't even, the issue with marriage most times is having kids and responsibility. So we don't really have to have kids yet. We don't have to do something serious, not just something small, just to obey God, which is more important. And then later other things can follow. That having kids, as I will soon be getting to my clinical year, was a no. That was the agreement. And he also agreed. Now at this time there was one red flag that was very keen. He didn't see why I didn't want to be a medical doctor, why I was studying medical lab science when I could be a medical doctor, and so he was very keen on that. And I could not understand. I never wanted to be a medical doctor, and I also felt, you're a medical doctor, so why do you want me to be a medical doctor? I felt it's tautology. So you are skilled in this area, I can be skilled in this area, and it will be a blend of what we're doing. We don't have to be in the same, I didn't see anything. So he was a little bit rigid in it, trying to get me to study in one of the Caribbean countries and all, but it wasn't really working. And I think the funds he was expecting, or as he claimed he was expecting, was not really forthcoming. And I was like, I love this. I always wanted to do this. That imagine if both of us are doctors, we now want to build a hospital. We'll now have to go and look for license of a scientist, because before you can have a lab, you have to get a scientist. But if you're a doctor, you have a license of a doctor, I'm a scientist, we can set up a clinic and we have everything. Like, it doesn't make any sense for both of us to actually be. That's what I felt, and I think that was what broke this camel back. He was like, oh, okay, this what you said makes sense. And it's like, oh, okay, that's wisdom, and he felt this was going to work. Then another red flag I actually saw was his parents. He told me they were in Ibadan, but anytime he came, he was very resistive in going to see them. He didn't want me to talk to them. I was like, let me go and see them now. I was like, no, don't worry, there's not time. But he made me meet one of his friends, then Pastor Yomi, and I remember when he first saw me, he was like, she's the one, Abi. Say, she's the one. They were doing some science themselves. I was like, yeah, she's the one. And he's like, yeah, we've been praying for you. You've been waiting for, and all of those kind of things. I was quite excited to see me. Went to see his wife, his family. We had lunch together. Was it lunch or dinner? And they were all, oh wow, finally, and all of those things. Red flag number 2. Why won't you want to go to see your family? Why won't you want me to meet your family? Like, no, it doesn't. And they're there in Ibadan. Now, I'm a family person. My family is so together that it didn't make any sense. So, that was September, and he was saying all of that, the whole marriage thing. And so I said, you have to see my parents. The way we get married in our place, you go, you see my parents, they'll give you a list, they'll do some seconds and all. And he was like, list, and all of those things. Okay, you know what? Since we're not even doing a very serious thing, and it's we just discussed it. Since we're not doing a serious thing, and when I graduate, you can do something serious, and we're not having kids yet. Why don't you do something quiet, something just few people and all? I said, okay, first you have to inform my parents first. So he called my dad. My dad said, oh, interesting. Okay, come. I want to see you. That's boldness for you to call me and say you want to marry my daughter. That's a lot of boldness. My dad is like, okay, come. And he said, okay, he will come. When he came, my mom had traveled for burial of somebody in her family. I can't remember. but she traveled. She wasn't around, so he came. He said he was gonna come back again, and my mom already loved him from far. When she spoke to him, she was like, "Oh, my son," you know. And of course, we could talk ministry together. My mom is a pastor, so it made so much sense to her. She liked him, or they synced. They even synced together more than I did. So we're able to convince my dad. My dad was like, "No, we have to go to the village." I was like, "Daddy, I'm not going to any village. We're not doing all those things. Who are we giving this to? After all, it's just a mini something, and then we can always go back to do those things later, just to obey God. You know, let's just obey God, and maybe there's a blessing attached to it." So my dad said, "No problem." I remember that was December when he came to my dad and they came back. He now told me that so he said, "Let's do the wedding in February." His birthday is February, my birthday is March. So he said, "Let's do the..." I was finishing my exam for tutorial level second semester in January. So he said, "Let's do it in February." I was like, February, okay. I was like, let's see. My brother too felt, what's the hurry? Why are you guys trying to rush when you know that it's already there's still time, you're still in school, what's the problem? You know, so he was a little bit skeptical, but I was like, we're just trying to obey God. My brother asked me, "Are you pregnant?" I said, "I'm not pregnant though. I've not even had sex with this guy." That no, there's nothing like that. So he said, "No problem, but he can't come back. He wished he was going to be at my wedding." And I'm like, "No, no problem. No problem, we'll be fine." My parents too also felt, "We wish we had enough time to really prepare to send you forth, you know, give us." I was like, "I'll always be here now. When I finish school, always do something big." I wasn't too insistent on some things. And so when I finished my exam in January, that was ending of January, first week of February, or I think 1st of February, took me to Lagos. He had told me he had a place in Lagos. Someone had given him, but it was like a 1-bedroom apartment. So I said, "No problem." So we went. We went, and he didn't take me there. He took me to a family friend, and I stayed in their place, and he stayed somewhere else. He said he was sleeping in the church for some certain reasons, some things that were being sorted out. So I said, "No problem." So he was there, and I was there. We met together. That was Saturday night. We met together in church on Sunday. He had a ministry where he had people come together to worship, and he introduced me and all of that. And I think on Monday, he now took me to go see his family. We went to a house which I was eventually going to find out was his sister's house, not actually his parents' house. I was like, "Why didn't you go to his parents' house? His parents' house does not contain everybody, that this one is closer. His parents' house is just somewhere." He pointed it to me. So I was never there. My parents were not even there. And so we just said, "Okay, let's do stuff." And I remember he was like, "Let's just do the church." My mom was like, "No, we have to do court wedding." And so she helped us process the papers and all. And so when they came here to do the engagement, we went to the court, did a court ceremony February 19th. And then, in fact, it was so funny that even my backyard neighbor did not know anything was going on in this house. That was how quiet it was. And then we now came in, and my dad just handed me over to him and all of that. And in like, I mean, maybe 1 hour, how many minutes, and everybody, my dad prayed, his dad prayed, and that was it. His dad, his mom, and his brother was here. His younger brother, I didn't even know he had another brother. We're going to come into the issues of the marriage, but anyway, that was how the marriage happened. Before then, he had taken me to who he considered his spiritual parents in Lagos. And so we were going, they were like, "We have to do some counseling, we have to, you know, we're going to meet them and all." So we said, when we come back, so when we got back, we were doing that. And by March 21st, they wanted the wedding to be extended, but I was resuming school, I think March 30 or something, and I had to resume. So like, no, let's do everything before I resume. So the wedding was fixed for March 21st. So we did my wife's wedding on March 21st. The wedding day, it was quite okay. There were most of the members of the church really swung into action, supported in every way, the makeup, so many things. I had family too that supported in cash. And on the wedding, for some reason, when I got to the church, I began to sweat. Like sweat seriously. I was feeling heavy. I was feeling on myself. I don't know whether it was the shoe or the heels or something, but my dad was walking me. As my dad was walking me down the aisle, I could not hear any sound. I could not concentrate. I was overwhelmed. I was not connecting. I didn't, I can't even remember the procession song or anything. I could not remember. I was just lost. I was sweating. The church is big, and it is, I can practically say it's coded with ACs, but I was sweating profusely. So when we got in, I sat down. That's where she stand up. I whispered to his ear that I'm shaking. I don't know if I'm hypoglycemic or something, I feel I'm going to faint. But I'd eaten that morning. I didn't know what was wrong, but I was very, very tensed. I was very, very tensed. And so we were there, and they just stand up to read. I can't remember what I read. I'm very fluent, but I can't remember what I read. I was that, I don't know, I felt stiff. And so at a point, the minister said, can you guys come forward so that I can bless you and then pronounce man and wife? So basically we went forward, and he said we should kneel down. Immediately we knelt down. My sister, who was my chief bridesmaid, slumped. She fainted. And there was a pandemonium everywhere. And the water, my mom began to pray. Everybody began to pray. And I was shocked. So we didn't turn back. We just allowed him prayer. And I was like, and when I got back, she was apologizing that she doesn't know what happened, that she was fine. She doesn't know what happened. Me, I knew what happened. Probably what was on me was what passed on to her, that she was now the one that fainted. Because immediately she fainted, it was like the pot, like I felt relief. I didn't understand what the significance of that was. There were some people that were like, this type of thing, these are some people down there already, but I thank God that she didn't die. I didn't know that all those things were signs. Meanwhile, he was uptight, he was all on guard, as if that the marriage was going to go wrong. They were attacking the marriage, they didn't want something to happen. He's up guard. Same thing in when we're doing traditional wedding. He was not smiling. He told me that God said we must not eat from the food that was cooked for the guests from the house. So we didn't eat. When we were going back to Lagos, he would not even sit beside me, he would not talk. He was just all uptight. I was seeing a different person. That was for the trad. I'm going to be sharing what I saw after that, between that trad of February 19th and March 21st, that I knew that I had entered a one chance bus.
What led to the fallout?
So, like I said, the traditional wedding was just, he was a little bit uptight. So we're going to Lagos. We took the last flight that day, and I was all uptight. We go back to Lagos too. He wouldn't talk to me. He wouldn't relate to me. He was just, I don't even know how to explain it. It was just, I was asking, have I done anything wrong? If I did something wrong, why don't you tell me? That's what I was feeling. What have I done? I was crying. He wasn't talking to me. I was left alone. At that point, I'd realized that he didn't have a house. He claimed he had was his own, and he was practically squatting in someone's house. And that was where one of the members, she had her BQ was where they were using for the church, for the fellowship. And so he was staying there, and he was sleeping on the floor, and his stuff were in the store. And so when I came, she gave me a room. She was like that, no, she cannot allow their Yahoo to stay in that same state as he was. So she said he refused to stay in one of the rooms in their house. So she gave me one of the rooms in her house. She had a duplex. And so we had not done church wedding at that time. So we weren't really going to have sex or anything like that. So she gave me that place to stay, with the hope that before the white wedding, we'll be able to get our own place. I saw all of that, but I felt we are two people with potentials, so we can actually get something. We can actually, we can build. There's nothing that is not possible. That was how I felt. I'll bet I was wrong. I was very wrong. So a week later or two, just before the white wedding, he began to act weird, and then he came to me. I remember I was lying on the bed, and he sat by the stool by the table, the locker beside the bed, and he's like, that you have a good heart. I've watched you, I've observed you. You have a good heart. You're very good. You're very kind, and I don't know. I just feel you don't deserve all of this. Um, I didn't want to tell you, but I have to tell you. Do you know that immediately we came into your house that day, that Pastor Yomi just saw and he just knew that. He said, if I knew you were coming to this house tomorrow, I wouldn't have allowed you. That the truth is, your mother is a witch, and she initiated you when you were born. And so you two are a witch. And the way your coven is, they've already said you will not get married. And so I got married to you to save you. And that's why when I was in the wedding, I was uptight because I knew they were going to fight, they were going to do all manner of things. So I needed to stand my ground and be praying so that whatever they're doing was not going to work. I sat up from the bed and I'm like, me, a witch. Can I be a witch and I will not know? It didn't add up. I was like, when did you say you guys had this revelation? I said, the day they came. I mean, a day before the wedding. He said, yes. Why didn't you tell me before the wedding? I was trying to help you. I was trying to save you. Well, that was why you were acting up during the wedding and you didn't tell me. And so you got married to save me. You didn't tell me. You had that in mind. Look at all the pictures. Nonsense. You did not tell me and you married me. That means you married me out of the seed. I was so pained. How? I'm a witch. My mom is a witch. I didn't die all this while. She didn't kill me all this while. How? I don't understand. And I said, that's what they said. I began to cry. I could not understand what I just heard. And they said this marriage, that in fact why he's even telling me now is because there is space where my cooperation is needed, and without my cooperation it might not work through. That he knows that we have agreed that we're not going to have kids till I was done with school, but it's very important we have a child, at least one, before we start waiting. If not, we might never have a child, and this marriage might not work, might not stand. That the only thing that will keep it is the child. That's what he told me. The only thing that will keep it is the child. That's what is going to fight against them. And then secondly, I might have to stay away from my family so they don't have to monitor me. One week after wedding, not white wedding, traditional. We've not even had sex at that time. Traditional and court wedding. That was where the problem started. Yeah, that was where the problem started. And it became a nightmare, because he believed strongly in that, and so he was no longer seeing me as me. He was seeing me in the eyes of them, and so whatever I did not make sense. And one of the things too was I wasn't supposed to really discuss that with anybody. So even the people we were going for church counseling with, I could not tell her that is what was going on. But a lot of things, but I was telling her how everything was going wrong, how he was complaining of everything, how he was making life very unbearable for me. And she was constantly trying to encourage me. Trying to, okay, let's learn this. I should tell him where he's wrong. That no, you don't have to do this now. She's a human being. She has a mind. She has a soul. Don't be too harsh on her, and all of those kind of things. And so, we went on like that, and I agreed that okay, let's have a child. Initially, I did not agree because I felt we didn't have a house. We didn't have anything. How do you now want us to have a child? Where do you want us to start from? Where do you think it's easy to have a child? I've gone through stuff, and my child must have better than what I had, and I'm not prepared. I'm not mentally prepared, I'm physically prepared. It was like just to be. I said, that's how you say we should obey God to get married. Now we're here, and it's like, don't you trust God? Can't you believe? Can't you? And I said, okay, no problem. And then we began to try to have a child. We did the white wedding, and we began to try to have a child, and I wasn't having one. I resumed school, and so because of that, I had to come to Lagos every weekend. So sometimes I'll finish my coursework at about 5-6, and I'm heading straight to Iwo Road to take the next cab to Lagos. That time, these days, I don't hear about Lagos traffic. Lagos Ibadan traffic. I don't know whether it's because I don't live around there anymore. But it was sometimes I would get home like about 12 midnight, and I had to do that. But I wasn't getting pregnant. 3 months, I wasn't getting pregnant. By June, I became very worried. I began to pray that, hey, is it that what they are saying is actually true? Is this is going to confirm whatever it is they are saying? What am I going to do? Now, prior to then, I wasn't really sexually active, so I wasn't taking note of any time or anything. I didn't even know anything. Like, I was like, God, what have I done? God, defend me now. And they were beginning to ask questions. We've not seen anything now. What is going on and all of that. We still did not have a house at this time. And so I remember in June, I told him, let's go see a doctor. I was like, it's not your time. I beg, wait, Joe. He too was quite busy. And at a point, I was very disturbed where we were. And I told him, can we get a house outside of this place? For me, I was at the point where I felt it's better I lived under the bridge than to live there. I could not speak their language. I didn't understand what they were doing. And so everything was just, I was just not comfortable. But he was wanting to live in a mansion. So if I get the house in Ojo and show him, he will not take it. He was like, no, that's too small. We're going to live in the heart of Ikeja. And he wasn't also working as a doctor. He was like his ministry, and that was what the full thing that God had called him to do or for. And so that was what he was going to do. And that's what he was doing before he met me, and he was doing well. So I can now come and just change it. Then he began the narrative that since I came into his life, things were not working. That before I came, he was really at the brink of getting an accommodation and getting some breakthroughs. But since I came, nothing was working again. My coven people are trying to frustrate him. They're trying to do this, they're trying to do that. You can imagine what, I was just about 22 at that time. I clocked 22 in March, that year when I got married. So I was young, and I was hearing all of this, and I was pained. I felt responsible. I felt responsible for everything that was going on, and I didn't know how to help. I didn't even know I was in a coven. I didn't even know how to talk to the coven people or anything related to that. So, no, really, I didn't know what to do. It was, now I can laugh about it, but it was painful. It was painful. I'll wake up crying. I'll go to bed crying, begging God to be my defense and help me and defend me from whatever it is that it seemed like I was, because I really didn't know I was. Now at this point, I was also a little bit distant from my family, so I wasn't telling them what was going on. Things were really bad, and it was affecting me. And I was praying to God and talking. And in September, no, in August, in July, I found that I had to go. Even got married from my brother, borrowed money. I didn't even tell him what I wanted to use it for. And I told my friend, please, I want to do this. I want to check. I want to find out what's wrong. And because they were in medical school, she had linked to their consultants and all. So I was able to see the consultant without having to get a card and all, who was the HOD at A1G then, Dr. Olaimi. And when we did the test and all of that, and found out that I had bilateral PCOS. So my 2 ovaries, there's just no way these 2 ovaries can actually release eggs. You've not been ovulating. Have you been seeing your menses? I'm like, yes, I think so. He said, no, I'm not sure. You've not been ovulating. Now, the funny thing was I wasn't sexually active, so I wasn't paying attention to all of this. So I didn't even notice I was not. And he said, no, you can't, except by an intervention. And the intervention cannot happen with you alone. It has to be you and your husband. So you have to bring him. How am I going to tell him that I went to do tests without telling him? So I got home that day. At that point, we had gotten somebody had gifted me 500,000 to get a place. And so most of the houses he was seeing big in Ikeja were too big. And we could not afford the amount. And so I was disturbed, and I said, you know what, I'll take from this money and just get a self-contained in Ibadan, because even in Ibadan I was staying in nursing hostel, and nursing hostel, they don't even allow guys to come in. So even if he comes to visit me in Ibadan, he can't come and he can't sleep there. So I was like, at least let me get a self-contained. So even if I'm in Lagos and I'm struggling, if I'm in Ibadan, I know that I'm in my own place. Uncle went to go and get a 4-bedroom, was it four? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, a 4-bedroom, 2 sitting room bungalow. 450,000 total package in Ibadan. I saw the house, like, what are we using this house for? It's too big. It's too big. And I was like, why don't you think, why are you not hoping? Why don't you believe we'll use this place for office? We'll use this for that. I'm like, with which money are we going to furnish it? We had about 500,000. You've used almost the whole money, about 450 or 480 to set out this place. So where are we now going to do the house? And of course, the same thing that you don't believe, you're not trusting, you don't have faith. That's the word. You don't have faith. I keep hearing I don't have faith many times. So we had moved there, but the house was relatively empty. So I got in that day and I was crying. I was like, why are you crying? And I just showed him the result that this is what happened. How dare you? How can you go and do a test without me? Without telling me? How can you allow another male examine you without me? Like, see where you're thinking. How can you allow another male examine you without thinking? I was just crying. He was so angry, and then he stepped out of the house. Went to another room, and I was crying. And then he came to me, I think maybe 30 minutes or 1 hour later, and he started crying that he just went to pray, and God told him that he should not be angry with me. He should calm me down. That God said, I'm going to actually have a child. That is going to give me a child. That don't worry. This was August. Yeah, this was August. So he told Dr. Ali, I said, what do we do now? I said, we have to call him. He said, okay, he will call him. That there are many means God can give a child. So let's see. That he will call him, we'll go and see him. So we called him, we booked an appointment, went to see him. We talked about the interventions and all of those things. And we said, okay, we'll start, we'll prepare, we'll get the drugs. That means I have to relatively be on bed rest and be a little bit, indoors during that period to ensure that everything goes on fine, which we agreed to. However, he was having an event, so he said after the event, it was a worship concert, after the event we'll start doing it. We'll start doing it. So yeah, after the event, during the event and after, I was very sick, very, very sick. I was just strained up. I was malaria, fever, and all. And so we called the doctor to say this is what's going on, or maybe we should treat malaria before we do before we start the intervention. And he said, are you sure she's not pregnant? I'm pregnant. How? But we just did this test in August. We did a transvaginal scan. We did the ultrasound scan. We did everything. We did pregnancy test. There was nothing. So I can't be pregnant now. When did the pregnancy enter? Between when I did it till now, we had not really had sex, because I was like a turn off to him. Everything that happened was really, he was angry with me. He was still angry. So, and he was busy with his concert. So there was really, I could not pinpoint when I could have gotten pregnant. And so he said he thinks so. So he said, okay. He said, do your malaria test and still do your pregnancy test. So we got there and we did the test, and it came out that the pregnancy test was positive. Yeah, it was positive. I knelt down in the lab that day. I said, God, but I could not understand pregnant. How? When? Is it true? I said, no, I have to go for a scan. So we're heading to Lagos that day. I just said, you know what, let's stop in the pharmacy. There are some advanced kits that will tell you the exact time that at least to find out this thing cannot be. How long? So we got the strip, I think Clear Blue. Clear Blue only tells up to 5 weeks. Then they'll say plus, as if it's plus or anything. So we did it, and he said 5 plus. I'm like, how? That means I've been pregnant even before I went for the transvaginal scan or anything. Cut the long story short, we did this ultrasound and a scan and found out that I was 8 weeks gone. That was how I found out I was pregnant. And so all the whole sickness was hyperemesis, and it continued till I was 5 months gone. I was practically on and off the hospital, barely in school, very ill. He was also threatening me that, this baby was not supposed to come. That it's not easy for you to have a child, so this one, you must protect it. You must not tell anybody. You must not tell your mom. You must not tell your family. They'll try to kill the baby. And yeah, so those were the initial crisis of the marriage. Now the late crisis.